Hey, Fanboy Nation.
This is your pal Daffy Duck, and you're watching.
We're watching Fanboy.
A fanboy, etc.
Fanboy Nation.
I assume Tom.
There we go. All right. Nicole Rose, how are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I cannot complain. I'm sorry about my tardiness. Please forgive me, but we are talking about your film for Dances with Films. Goodbye, Petrushka. Is that how I'm pronouncing it?
Correct.
All right. So fill me in. Dances with Films, French figure skater. Here we go. New York to Paris, all this international travel that's going on.
Yes. So Goodbye, Petrushka is a not quite romantic comedy that has to do with a young woman named Claire who moves from America to Paris and back to America again over the course of the movie, but not without undergoing a whole lot of really messy growing up adventures along the way.
Well, life can't always be smooth sailing, can it?
It throws those at you.
What made you want to not only write but direct and produce this film? Was this a story that you never seen and that you thought, this is the one that I need to tell? Were you a figure skater yourself? Like, how did that all work out?
So the first part is absolutely correct. It was a movie that I hadn't seen. It was a movie I wanted to tell, a story I wanted to tell, and a movie I wanted to make, but I was never a figure skater. The figure skater is actually the male lead in the story, who is a character that our main character falls in love with, but she kind of falls in love at him because she falls in love with like the version of him that she sees like skating around on the ice and being characters, and he's so compelling to her, but she hasn't met him. They meet before she ever realizes who he is. So they meet, and then she figures out who he is and why what he does is so cool. And he's actually based on a friend of mine who was in a very similar situation to the male character, where he's forcibly retired from a profession that kind of ends early no matter what you do. But people like that, dancers, skaters, or athletes are in a position where they've only done one thing kind of for years, and they're really, really good at that thing, and they've gotten to an elite level with their sport, and then they find themselves at the point where, okay, now now the trend is downward. Now they can't do what they did anymore, and they have to retire. But where do we go from here? Mm-hmm. And that's his dilemma.
Right. Well, it sounds like, it's always interesting when you see somebody on the downturn and how they react to everything.
Yeah. No, that's the thing, because they haven't had any other experiences.
With this, it's not necessarily a romantic comedy, but there is romance there. Yeah. There is humor there. Would it kind of fits a little more of a dramedy instead?
I think that's accurate. Yeah, we really leaned into the comedy of this film. That was sort of the way that the rewrites went. Each one was funnier than the last. And I really loved the comedy of it. But at the same time, it's not entirely a comedy. I like to think of it as a romantic comedy that isn't quite romantic and isn't quite a comedy, and yet it's both.
As the person with an array of hats, how, as the writer, do you divorce yourself from the written page, allowing the director to take over to see what didn't quite fit from the written page, for the producer to look at the director and go, you know what, this isn't in our budget to make this scene happen?
Well, I should deviate from this slightly for a second, just to say that I'm one half of the lead producers on the film. The other producer is Tierney Borbor, who was she's not here at the moment today, but she was absolutely my guiding light and fairy godmother getting this done. And she was the one who was really instrumental in saying, especially when the script was at its first version, when I was showing this to her and saying, well, I wrote this years ago and I just brought it out of the mothballs and here it is. She was the one who was so instrumental in saying, here's what we need to pare down in order to make this actually budgetable and producible, and here's what we can and can't pay for. Because I had all sorts of things in there that that I put in before I hadn't made a movie back when I wrote the script. I went off and made a bunch of short movies and then came back and I realized, oh, there's like an Olympics taking place in this film. Can't really, excuse me, I'm just grabbing a tissue. And so, it wasn't necessarily all me deciding what could be budgeted and what could be produced. It certainly wasn't. She was so instrumental in that. And this movie wouldn't have happened without her. Director wise, though, it's really easy to switch out of writer mode, because as soon as you have actors coming in there and adding their own, lights and colors to what's going on, you're like, oh, it works better this way and that way. And let's take this out completely. And I guess I'm very lucky lucky twofold that I have good actors, but also lucky I'm able to say, oh yeah, I'm not too wedded to any of this stuff if it's not working anymore.
That's something that's absolutely beautiful, in the fact that you're not so married to the page itself that you're able to differentiate between what you're able to do as a storyteller versus the dream of, but this should fit because I saw the way it was on the page.
There are those things, I think, that you are determined to make fit because they can, but there are other things that you look at and I think really quickly make the calculus in your head that, oh, this doesn't need to be forced into, this is a square peg, it doesn't need to be forced into a round hole, and hopefully you make the right determinations each time, and that's part of your job as a director, as a producer, and as a writer.
With this film being at Dances with Films, what has been, is this the world premiere at Dances with Films? Or
yeah,
okay,
the world premiere.
And what day will it be screening for audiences to be able to come check it out?
It actually already screened on June 12th, but next month it's going to be back in LA for a little short theatrical run at Cine Lounge just down the street in Hollywood Boulevard, and that will be from July 15th through 21st.
Beautiful.
So keep an eye out for that. It was really something to hear the reaction.
What was the crowd reaction to it? And then how did they respond to the Q&A afterwards?
Yeah, the crowd reaction was fantastic. And, they laughed throughout. They were extremely lively, very reactive. You could hear, verbal utterances at the characters from time to time. And that's when you're doing their job, when people are like, no, and oh my God. And, it's very, very gratifying. I think what surprised me most was laughter in places I didn't think there would be laughter, not necessarily places I didn't think were funny, but places I thought wouldn't elicit that reaction, if that makes sense. Different reaction. Maybe
it absolutely does, actually.
I loved
because
it.
Some scenes hit more personally for you and then resonate differently with an audience. With that being part of the aspect, do you think that this is just a one-off? Could there be a sequel to this? How would you like to proceed?
Right. That's a great question. We've with my producing partner, we have talked about sequels to it. I wrote a very sort of loose treatment of a sequel. At the moment, I don't think there would be a sequel. I think we would just be working with the same team on different projects as the years go on. I think this wrapped up. The ending is, without giving away the ending, I love the ending. I think it wrapped up exactly the way it needed to. And I don't really think it helps to know what happens next. Hey, I could be wrong. I don't think it helps.
Well, hopefully you'll spawn off some like fan fiction and they'll tell you what they want to see next.
That's always the dream, right? People making up their own stuff.
Hey, it worked out for 50 Shades of Grey with what was it? The Stephanie Meyers books, the Twilight series.
Yes, this is Twilight fan fiction.
That turned into a whole different genre and a set of books and movies. So
no kidding. Yeah,
you can inspire someone else for that.
Well, maybe I just don't have to know about it if the content is similar.
Well, with everything that goes on, the world premiere was at Dances with Films. It has a limited theatrical release here in Southern California. How exciting is that for you as a filmmaker to have your film that well received?
It's really wonderful because it just feels like having the premiere go off the way it did without a hitch, and laughter in places different than I expected, but basically a dream premiere. It just made me feel very satisfied, like, oh, I did my job the way I have trained to, and I did my job the way I was supposed to and the way I envisioned, and now I can build on this and go on from here, and I must be good at this.
Well, you did something right, and you did something that 99% of the population has never done. You made a film.
Yeah, that's what I hear is that 99% of people don't, I mean, maybe they don't want to, which show who can blame them, but yes.
Well, everyone has a great film idea, but no one really puts pen to paper or finance to film to get it done.
It's so
So
hard. It's so hard. You have
congratulations.
to be, thank you. Thank you so much. You have to be so lucky in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I joke around a lot about people in my industry as a film critic, in that, you know, when they go all out and dump on movies if they didn't like it, that they were failed screenwriters and then had to transfer to the creative writing department to find ways of you know, ruining somebody's dream.
Yeah, there is something to that.
Well, you know, we have to have fun within our own little circle as well and tease each other in that regard.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm certainly not saying that, you know, all critics who are negative are failed screenwriters or anything like that, but I think so many of us have dreams deferred or lost that, you know, make us upset in that way. And you know, I think you're tapping into something that, you know, may hit close to home for some.
Listen, I have fun reviewing movies. I used to, you know, I used to be in the hard news world, and this is a lot better to be a part of.
I can imagine. I can
Yeah.
imagine.
Although I think, you know, life is imitating art with the big finance stuff at times, but we're not going to go into that.
No, we don't need to go there, but I think you're right.
You know, well, this is your third film, correct? As a director, or is this
It's
no,
my first
seventh film?
feature. Yes, it's my first feature film as a director, but before that I did 4 shorts and a web series. So I guess is this number 6? I don't even know where to count from anymore.
Uh, well, how difficult is it to make that transition from short to full length feature, or a web series into a feature?
Right. Well, you need a producer, a wonderful producer, you know, at least one. And we, you know, ideally should have had a team of them, but we had just us two. You need somebody really leading you every step of the way to do a feature. But with shorts and so forth, the thing that was interesting for me to find out last year when we did do this movie is that in many ways, in about 90% of aspects, it is the same process. The feature is just like the same process on steroids. But the short, you know, you're still planning, you're still budgeting, you're still shooting, you're still trying to make your days, you're still trying to make budget, not go over budget. um and you know, you still have your departments, your you know, sometimes skeleton crew, sometimes very reduced departments, but you're still sort of, you know, allocating work in a similar way. It's just that the feature is so much larger, but it feels like the same process. And I think having made, you know, so many shorts by the time I got there, it prepared me to make a feature. I thought I was a little dubious, not dubious, I was ready, but I felt like, oh, it'll feel like a completely different beast. And instead I was like, no, it's the same thing, just bigger and stronger.
So what you're saying is that you're young and embittered and already grizzled.
Exactly. Young and embittered. And growing the grizzle as I speak.
Well, the important thing is you're still having fun.
Still having fun for sure. And yeah, wanting to do another feature and see where it goes.
With everything that's going on, and again, you know, you just had the premiere at Dances with Films, a limited release coming to Southern California as well. How significant is it for you as an artist, with the delayed reaction and gratification, to see all your work pay off, that they enjoyed your movie?
Oh my gosh. So it's interesting you talk about delayed reactions, because I often joke, especially with my mom, that I'm like the queen of delayed reactions. I have delayed reactions, positive and negative, to everything. So it really is still setting in. It's really, I'm just going against the light here. Oh, that's better. Just, it really is settling in. It really is still hitting me. And I think it's going to hit me even more like in a week than it's hitting me now. I'll say, wow, that was a really good reaction. Or it'll hit me, this is hitting me all the time, some specific joke that people laughed at that I didn't remember that they laughed at until like 5 days later. I'm like, oh, that was really cool, you know. So it's stupendous, and it'll hit me more and more how stupendous it is.
Well, since mom makes fun of you for your delayed reactions, what was her reaction to the film?
She really liked the film, and she was creeped out by the parts you're supposed to be creeped out by, and she loved the parts that you're supposed to love. So I felt like, and she's not necessarily the easiest, you know, easiest customer to please. Neither of my parents are. And I'm glad about that, because, you know, when you have people you're close to and all they say is, oh, that's nice, honey, you know, good try, you know, it's not really helpful to you, is it? So, I was really happy that both of them enjoyed it. My parents are both artists, both started out as classical musicians. My dad kind of went sideways into another art and became a cartoonist. And so, they both know the grind. They both know it really well.
Well, when you go from clarinet to cartoons, it's and I'm using alliteration. I don't know what instrument your father played, so
Viola, it doesn't work as well. It's fine.
yeah.
Clarinet is good.
It worked for the alliteration aspect of it.
Viola, yeah, I'm trying to think. Viola to there's no V for movies.
But the important thing is, he enjoyed his work as a cartoonist and as a musician. You're enjoying your work as a filmmaker. What would you tell other young filmmakers to aspire to, especially in making the first feature?
I would say make exactly the feature you want to make, because now is the time that nobody else is going to come in and want you to make anything else. You have complete carte blanche to do whatever you want. So try and make that happen, and don't be afraid to modify it as circumstances and budget force you to, because often being forced to do things is what makes you be more creative. So it sounds like a contradiction, but it's not. It's basically stay true to your vision, but also be ready to let that vision be modified depending on where life takes it.
And let's add this one thing. Since the film takes place going back and forth between New York and Paris, how much has your French improved overall?
Not at all, because I was already bilingual.
Okay.
So I have to say 0%. But actually, no, that's not even true, because we had so many we had several French actors, and so on set I was really speaking two languages, going back and forth, and sometimes back and forth within a sentence, and sometimes I'd call action instead of action. And it definitely, your question is interesting, because it did re-immerse me in the feeling of being in France, even though we never went to France to film this movie. It's completely fake, but yeah.
It's all right. Listen, Nicole Rosa, it's been a great pleasure. Unfortunately, we have to cut this short. I could talk to you all day about this, because you're just so fascinating.
Thank you.
Tell us where we can find the film on social media, and again, where the limited release is going to be following Dances with Films.
Absolutely. So the social media for Goodbye Petrushka on both Instagram and Facebook is at Goodbye Petrushka Film, all one word. And then Cine Lounge in Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard, it's arenacinelounge.com, CINELOUNGE. And they're going to have the limited release of Goodbye Petrushka from July. I have to say the right month. It is July number 7. It's July 15th through 21st.
Perfect. Nicole Rose, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on the film, and I will be talking to you soon.
It was really fun talking to you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.